Well, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about MicroStrategy today. We will get into the usual chart dynamics and stuff as we always do, but I do want to open this up with probably something that everybody, and actually I think everybody is concerned about, because it's all I've seen as far as MicroStrategy comments go over the last 24 hours, and that is the MicroStrategy Bitcoin bet, Sailor's risky 10 billion share gamble. I'm sure you're all aware of this, but let's just take a dive into it for the people who aren't aware. All right, let's see here. Aiming to channel MicroStrategy money into buying more Bitcoin. Michael Saylor, and by default, MicroStrategy money also includes, because it's a publicly traded company, your money, any person who's holding MicroStrategy shares as well, not just, so MicroStrategy money is your money as well, right? Has revealed ambitious financial plans to raise its share count by an eye-watering 10 billion shares. Eye-watering, not a mouth-watering, an eye-watering. I like that. 10 billion shares, yeah. Might be enough reasons to make a couple eyes water. 10 billion shares, man. I think there's something like 300 million now, or how many? Let me look. Grok. How many MSTR shares are currently in circulation? I love Grok, dude. Compared to Google, it's just so much better. He gets me. Google, I have to hunt for the information. Grok understands what I'm saying. All right. Shares outstanding. Is that how many shares there are total? Is that right? I don't think that's right, though. Right? 197. I don't think that's right. Is that how many shares are outstanding, as in shares that haven't been in there? Total shares. Hold on. Total shares in circulation and outstanding. I say he gets me. He must get me. 100. Is that right? Is that how many shares there are? I thought there was more. But either way, even if it was double this, right? Essentially, all I'm trying to get to the point of is 197 million, 500 million. It could be 2 billion. Adding 10 billion to any of those numbers, that's an astronomical, that's a very large amount of dilution, right? And I can understand where the concern comes from. A lot of you are here not to hear me read this whole thing and tell you, what you already know. You're here because you're curious as to what my thoughts are on the price, what the potential impact is on the price, and are all of my targets still the same? Has anything changed? And I've answered a few people in the comments today saying this essentially. I'm going to say it right now. No, my prices have not changed. Yes, I do expect this to negatively impact the long-term growth of MicroStrategy from a price perspective, not from a market cap perspective, clearly, right? But I don't think that those effects, again, I said long-term, I don't think we're going to see those effects take place, or at least not to a significant degree, really throughout this cycle. I think this cycle, MicroStrategy still has all the same potential before this news that it's going to have after this news, right? And let's go into this. Actually, I want to look up something else real quick. Back on Grok. Let's do this before we get into the price action. Okay, I want to be clear. I actually do want to be clear. I'm going to bring up my big face one more time. Okay, I want to be very clear. I fully 100% believe that MicroStrategy right now, by the end of January, is on a trajectory, on a path to $1,000. At least $990. That's the target, right? So somewhere in that area. That hasn't changed. Not in the face of this news. And I'll tell you why before we get into the Grok stuff real quick. I'll tell you why. If this was something that was actually concerning for people who have a lot of money, or people who are, let's say, serious investors in MicroStrategy, they would have sold, right? They would have sold on this news. Yesterday, there wasn't a lot of volume. There wasn't a lot of volume at all on Christmas Eve or the day before, right? This news that Forbes put out, they've known about this. Whenever this information came out, which, by the way, if I look at, does it not tell me here? I'll just go back. It'll tell me right here. 14 hours ago, they knew about this more than probably 140 hours ago, right? Like this story is not new news. They've probably been in the works about this for a while. So there's insiders, there's people who've had this information that have been aware of it probably since back here, right? And that's probably why all this selling off has happened. So the selling off from this news might have already happened, right? This is one of those situations where normally when it's a bullish thing, you buy the hype, sell the news. This is different. You sell the hype and then you buy the news. Primarily because, and the point, if you haven't gotten it yet, is that this is a negative news driven event right here, right? MSTR on Forbes, on whatever website that you want to read this, whatever source you want to read it from, talking about adding 10 billion shares to dilute, right? Common stock shares, I think is what they are, right? Talking about adding that many shares, that's a negatively received thing. But why is the market not receiving it negatively, right? I got all these comments, I got all your concerns. Why is the market not receiving it negatively? And it's probably because, and it's no offense to you, my friends, even if you have millions of dollars at your disposal, you probably don't have billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars at your disposal. And the people with that kind of money at their disposal are the people who make the decisions when it comes to this thing going up or down, right? A few people being worried about the bad news that came out is not enough, right? Because the insiders were already aware of this. This news coming out at the bottom is no more helpful than a bullish story coming out at the top would be, right? The bullish story coming out at the top is for liquidity to sell into. The bearish news coming out at the bottom is for liquidity to buy into, right? They'll sell and you buy from, right? Again, really outlining what I'm trying to say here. If this was as big of a deal as any of you out there, right? New people to the channel, old people to the channel, I love you all. I respect you all. Your opinions matter. My opinions matter maybe just as much as everybody else's, right? But they don't matter a whole lot, right? Our opinions matter to some degree, right? I'm not trying to say your opinions don't matter, but when it comes to the charts, opinions really have no weight at all, right? And according to what I'm getting from most people's opinions, it seemed to be negatively received, but with what we're seeing on the chart, it's a totally different thing. We moved up 7%, right? So all that to say, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a big deal. And here's where I wish I actually started the video, because this is something that's reassuring right here, is if we look at Grok. We ask Grok again, because if you were to go to Google, you'd have to ask this a bunch of different ways. You'd have to open up a bunch of different web pages, but Grok can just bring up all the information for you right here. You can ask him to cite it. But when let's see, do you know anything about the MSTR share dilution proposal, right? Let's just see. I don't know. There's probably a better way to ask that, but I'm on the spot here. I'm on the fly. This isn't scripted, right? All right, here we go. 10.33 billion in authorized. Okay, let's ask now when. And we could read all this if you want. You guys can read all this. I'll just scroll through it if you want to pause it, right? This is Grok's reaction. As of latest updates, the proposal has been filed for a shareholder vote, but no final decision or outcome has been reported. This information is, and everybody's assuming that it will pass. It's assumed that adding this many shares, it will benefit the majority shareholder, which is Microstrategy, which is Michael Saylor, right? It'll favor them. It's not going to favor any other private investors, right? Because they don't get those shares. It's just Microstrategy that gets those shares. But there's a specific way that these shares have to be released, right, or gone about, reflecting sentiments and facts that they stood in late December, right? This information is drawn. Okay, cool. When is all of this supposed to happen? I can just talk to him like a person, right? Kind of. The shareholder vote. So here it is, guys. The shareholder vote for MicroStrategy's share dilution proposal is scheduled early 2025, though an exact date has not been specified in the available information. So early 2025. That could be January, that could be February, that could be March, right? That could be March. Probably not March. It probably does happen in January. That'd be my suspicion. Maybe even around the Trump inauguration. Who knows? But 2025. I'm going to ask, can you cite this information in case anybody else wants to look this up? You don't want to just take an AI's word for it, right? Can you cite this information? Here's the citation information regarding MicroStrategy share dilution proposal. The shareholder vote for MicroStrategy share dilution proposal is scheduled early. What? Let's see. CryptoBriefing.com, MicroStrategy stock. Okay, so it's in here apparently somewhere. There you go. Right, to be determined date. Okay, so in case any of you knew that or didn't know that, this meeting, the meeting is supposed to be held in 2025. Whenever these shares come out, they're not going to be able to flood 10 billion shares onto the market, right? There's a certain way. Like, let me just ask this too, because I don't know everything legal, but this is what the AI is here for. Let's ask Grok, man. How will the shares be distributed? Are there any laws? Are there any regulations in place to prevent a flooding of the markets with these newly created shares. I don't know, created shares, yeah, sure. And just read this. At the market, ATM, equity, right, convertible debt, stock options and equity incentives, private placements, regulations to prevent market flooding here, right? SEC regulations. This part, for anybody who's concerned, I'm not going to read all this, right? I'm putting this here for anybody who might not have access to Grok and you want an AI's response. You don't want to do the Google research yourself. You can look at all this stuff, right? If you want to pause it and just read through it. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff. Or maybe it's exciting to you, but it's boring to me, right? I've already read a lot of this stuff. I've already kind of gone through this before I made this video so that I was aware of what I'm saying before I said it. But even then, I'm not fully aware of everything that I'm saying. But all I'm trying to say, you guys, is that this dilution, this share dilution, it's a big deal. It's a lot. It's definitely going to affect the price negatively. Oh, there's one more thing that I want to ask Grok to prove, to validate after this. But I think that with this, next year we might see dividends being passed out in MicroStrategy stock. I think dividends will be offered for MicroStrategy. I think that's going to be in the discussion of this proposal going into early next year. I genuinely think that that's going to happen. So, and that makes sense. If they're going to dilute the stock, they might as well give you guys dividends, right? I don't know. They don't have to do that, but it makes sense that they might do that to appeal. But I don't think it's a big deal. The January targets, if anybody and everybody who has been giving me negative comments or negative feedback on my January targets, looks like $900 isn't happening by January now. This news is just news. It's not an event. It hasn't happened yet. There's a determined date or a to be determined date that is yet to come. We'll get back to the small face here for MicroStrategy. So this news, this negatively received news, which was not negatively received in the charts at all, will not impact, it could not impact the January prices at all because it's not going to be in effect until sometime after that, which means that everything I've said over the past week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks that I've been talking about, months that I've been talking about MicroStrategy, it all still remains the same, right? And there's an old saying, right, in the TA world, in the chart world, they say, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news, right? Show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. Well, the news is negative, right? But I'm telling you what the charts are saying. The news is about to be positive, right? It's no coincidence that the negative news comes out at the very bottom. And again, this was made on Forbes. This was made on cryptobriefing.com. There's a bunch of people who are probably aware of this before the news actually came out. They were promoting these stories, right? The person who is making this story, they heard it from their boss. Their boss heard it from their boss. That boss heard it from the person that told them, which is probably someone directly influenced with MicroStrategy, and they had their own little group meeting before any of this. Like there's so many people that hear about this stuff before you do. Right? It's no coincidence at all that this news literally came out at the bottom of this overall consolidation phase. It's no coincidence at all, right? This news, I guarantee you, was known about well before, probably even at the top here, maybe even before we moved up here, right? This is something that's been in the minds, in the discussions of people who matter at the top and with serious amounts of money in MicroStrategy, right? They've known about this. This news came out at the bottom for a reason. It's to shake out the weak hands. That's why there's no serious volume trading over the past 2 days while this news has been relevant. That's why nobody's trading. It's all the weak hands, all the people who can't stomach stuff like this. If you can't stomach stuff like this, you're not going to be able to stomach the moves down. You're not going to be able to handle the big swings up and the volatility that comes with it, right? So it shakes you out. We move up. It also adds liquidity to the movement up because whenever you shake people out down here and they sell at the bottom, when the price moves up, they're going to be compelled to buy up here. They're going to FOMO. They're going to feel like they made a mistake and they need to buy. And they're just going to add, they're both adding to the fuel by selling out down here to people who are strong hands and then FOMOing back into the top, right? It's like a double bullish event with stuff like this. So no, I think we have a bit of a reversal here. I think that this is not a buy the hype, sell the news. I think this is more of a sell the hype, buy the news. We just got the news released, so it's a buy the hype or buy the news kind of thing. We look at the relative fibs here. From the high that we established in March of 2024 to the low that we established in probably April of 2024, I think that's fine. Moved all the way up above the golden ratio here at the 1618, all the way up to the 2272. By this metric alone, the very next target that I would expect we hit at least is the 2618. From there, if we break above that, the next target would be 725 and then 847. We break above the 3113. The next zone would be around 1200 to 1300. Okay, so these are all targets that should come in mind. I don't think personally that we consolidated this long, moved up, and then consolidated here just to end this move right here. I don't think that sounds right. I don't think that we consolidated this long in the middle of this immaculate move up so far to just stop things right here. So already, I think 604, it is the next target, but I think it should be taken off the table. So really, maybe what we should be focusing on is something between 725 to 1300. I can hear some of you out there saying, hold on now, C-Zar, you've been talking about $1,000. You've been talking about $900. Why is this $700 target coming up? This is just based off of this fib here, right? This is just that target. The real target, the $990 target, that comes from the overall cycle high to cycle low, right? These fibs come from this relative March to September consolidation phase we had, but the last cycle high we had to the cycle low that we have, these fibs paint a different story, right? And if I delete this fib, I'll bring this back in a second, okay? But here we tipped the 1618, clearly showing significance on this fib. Here we tipped the 886 for support. We found resistance in the golden ratio zone. We found support on the 382, clearly showing support and significance on this fib all the way up. By the definition of this fib, when we break above the 1618, this golden ratio here at $539.12, we get any day, any week to close above this line. The next target by default would be $994 to $1,300, which is where I have this square. That square, again, comes from the next likely targets based off of this fib, which again, we already established. I don't think we see the 2618 just with reason alone. We didn't we didn't consolidate all this time, move up, consolidate for a little bit of time just to end right here at the very next target. I think that we will go further up. 725 is a good minimum target, I think, but likely we'd probably at least hit the 3113. It's more common in moves like this, strong moves like this, I think, to hit the 3113 than it is to hit the 2886, especially consolidating like this. But 725 might be a good minimum, right? You're at 358 now. There's no scenario, even the most minimalistic scenario that I can think of, there's no scenario where I see MicroStrategy gaining any less than 100% from here, from now, Christmas Day, to the end of January, right? It's inevitable. And then there are targets too. The 4618 lines up with the 2272 of this move over here, but I really like the 3618, the 3786. That area there lines up pretty damn well with the top of this zone over here, right? We don't have to hit the 3618, and I will admit, as you get to these threes, as you get to these deeper extensions, I would say it becomes less reliable depending on the chart. It could be more reliable here, it could be less reliable, but the reality of the matter is, guys, I've been talking about $994. I've been so adamant about this area. The reality of the matter is there's a case to be made for us to stop a little bit below. There's a case to be made for us to stop a little bit above. 994 is just sandwiched in the middle. It's the best guess based off of that, and it's a psychological area of resistance being at $1,000. The reality of the matter is we're at 358 right now. By the end of January, we have a very solid chance of seeing price move up to anything from 725 to $1,300. That's the information we have in front of us. From 725 to 1,300, personally speaking, if we put something right in the middle, that's $1,000. If there's any way to make sense out of it, it's this 1886 right here. So that's why I keep saying $1,000. But it is possible we could fall a little shy of that. Even if we do, still 100% growth or more from here. Or it's possible that we could exceed that a little bit. And in which case, you know, maybe do more than a little bit of a 100% growth from here. But I got nothing else to say. I think I've made the point. My friends, please don't worry about the negative news. Please don't worry about it. You know, and especially if you do, if you're ever curious yourself, you don't know the answers. It might feel scary. You might be concerned, but you don't know what to believe. Look at the charts, right? Look at the charts. If it's the weekend, that's a different story. The charts don't move. If it's a holiday, the charts don't move. But yesterday, during a fully effective stock day, right, Tuesday, in the middle of a Tuesday, it was Christmas Eve, to be completely fair, we moved up 7.8% in the wake of what I think most people took as catastrophically terrible news, right? MicroStrategy is never going to gain value. But the odds of this, right? Michael Saylor's not a dumb guy. The people who are in charge of MicroStrategy, they're not dumb. It's the largest Bitcoin bank in the world. They are the largest single entity holder of Bitcoin in the world. They didn't get there by being dumb. They're not going to flood the market with 10 billion shares. There's regulations put in place to prevent that, right? That's what this whole part here was for, right? If you want to read up on that yourself. I didn't go through it because I didn't want to bore you. You can just do it on your own if you want to, right? Just go through, pause this, and read through any and all of that, right? That's Grok's response. And it is cited. I didn't ask him. I'm going to just ask, can you cite this? He might just give links. Let me see. If you want to cite it, if anybody wants to look it up themselves. There you go. I don't know. No, it is just links, man. inmarketscreener.com. I don't know. Maybe that's not the best, but whatever. All I'm trying to say, I don't think it's a big deal. It's no coincidence that the negative news came out here. They knew about it before yesterday. They knew about it before this day, but they put it out here at one of the lowest prices. It's no mistake. And then negative news, we moved up. We didn't sell off. If this truly was negative news, this is not the price action that you would have based off of that, right? So MicroStrategy targets, and even if this news is negative, even if it is the worst thing in the world, even if all of your worst nightmares are true, they haven't even had a meeting on it yet. It's scheduled for sometime in early 2025 with a predetermined date, and even after the meeting, those shares still have not come into effect, right? It's going to take time, my friends. So everything that I've said, all the predictions I've made for the end of January still stand firm, even in the wake of this news, which I don't think is as big of a deal as it's made out to be. I think that this is only going to extend and promote the value of MicroStrategy. And like I said, show me the charts and I'll tell you the news. The charts are bullish. So if the news is bearish, the news is lying, but the charts are not lying. I hope I'm not lying. I will see you guys on the next one. I hope you liked the video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you want more content like this. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.